Oh yes, look, the body language in these pictures really says it all. This is a year later, 1993, and Diana is back with the royal family at Sandringham. A source told my colleague Richard Kay at the time, Diana didn't feel welcome at all. She could see how her being there just made everyone so tense and uneasy. She joined them for the boys' sake, but it wasn't working. You know, we see Diana walking at the back as they left church. Prince Harry's sort of in the middle there, not sure if he should catch up to be with his father, Prince Charles. Prince Charles seems determined to get away, get out of the cameras as quickly as possible. The royal family may seem the picture of poise and tradition, but behind the polished smiles, Christmas is anything but boring. From festive feuds to heartwarming moments, the royals' holiday season is full of surprises. In this episode of Reading the Royals, I'll take you inside the drama, delights and secrets of the annual Christmas gathering and reveal what really goes on behind the doors at Sandringham. The first pictures we have of the royal family at Sandringham date all the way back to 1936, one of the most tumultuous years in the history of the monarchy. You can see we're going back in time from the bowler hats in the background. I mean, look at this. King George VI was joined by Queen Elizabeth, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, clutching her mother's hand there. From their relaxed and cheerful appearance, you'd never guess the royal family was reeling from one of its greatest scandals, the abdication crisis of King Edward VIII.
Then Edward speaks through the great British broadcasting station, his farewell to millions throughout the empire.
A few hours ago, I discharged my last duty as King and Emperor. But you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as King as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love.
It's hard to imagine now, but that happened just 2 weeks before these pictures were taken. The abdication crisis was on December the 10th, and after just a 325-day reign, George VI became our reluctant king. His stammer, of course, was made famous in the film The King's Speech. You know, he was a particularly loving father, and I think we can see that in this photograph. He seems a little nervous. You look at his face there, he's sort of looking at the crowd, and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, is clearly trying to be more poised and give the appearance of a strong queen, clutching the hand of Princess Margaret. And Queen Elizabeth there seems to be sort of striding quite confidently next to her father. The Queen would return to Sandringham for Christmas again in the 1950s, marking a historic milestone in 1957 when she delivered the very first televised royal Christmas message.
It's inevitable that I should seem a rather remote figure to many of you, a successor to the kings and queens of history, someone whose face may be familiar in newspapers and films, but who never really touches your personal lives. But now, at least for a few minutes, I welcome you to the peace of my own home.
Wow, imagine that, giving people the first insight into a royal palace. I mean, these recordings are always quite special and they give us a rare glimpse into the royal residences during Christmas. This one was delivered live from the Long Library, a genuine historic event, the first time the public could see and hear the Queen, and it brought that new intimacy between monarchy and the public, 25 years after the first Christmas message had been delivered by George V on the radio. This televised message was watched by 16.5 million people. You'll notice the sprigs of holly which were disguising the microphones on the desk. Her lines were printed onto paper and hidden in a book. And you'll notice this picture here of Prince Charles and Princess Anne. But it wasn't until the 1980s that Christmas at Sandringham became a permanent tradition. The late Queen went on to celebrate 32 festive seasons at the Norfolk estate, starting with this gathering in 1988. We have the Queen Mother here, typically dressed in a bright colour in pink, greeting well-wishers in the wheelchairs come to speak to her. Princess Diana and Sarah Ferguson, looking very interested in talking to these ladies. Oh, this is such a cute picture. This is Prince William. Look at him in his, long burgundy coat with his beloved cousin, Zara Phillips. Her father, Captain Mark Phillips, there looking dapper behind them, keeping an eye as they join the crowds. They look a bit nervous, but Prince William looks like he's turning to his cousin for reassurance and comfort. On Christmas Eve, the young royals, such as them, were invited to finish decorating the Christmas tree, and that's a tradition that continues to this day. Now, the glamour brought by Princess Diana and Fergie is really evident in this picture. And the closeness between the sister-in-laws can be seen here. They look like they're enjoying meeting the crowds and supporting each other. In the royal family, the tradition is to exchange presents on Christmas Eve, in keeping with the German tradition. Perhaps it's not surprising for a family who has everything, but instead of giving lavish presents at Christmas, the royal family tend to exchange joke gifts. Princess Diana is said to have given Fergie on one occasion a leopard print bath mat. Diana reportedly didn't like spending Christmas with the royals, but here she looks happy. Perhaps she was looking forward to meeting the adoring crowds who no doubt would have been shouting greetings to her and Fergie. Now let's jump ahead to 1991, and it was a royal Christmas that was overshadowed by tension and discord. Of all the pictures taken that day, I would say this is the most telling. Look here, we've got Prince Charles, Princess Diana walking separately at quite a distance between each other. Diana there clutching Prince Harry's hand. You know, that distance really does look indicative of what was to come in the year to follow. Diana said Christmas was highly fraught with lots of tension. This was also the last time that Fergie and Andrew were together at Sandringham for Christmas for 32 years. Oh gosh, look at this picture. Yeah, this was Christmas 1992. You know, it's the climax of what the Queen described as an annus horribilis. Diana wasn't with them this year, and you can see here, I mean, look at the expressions on the young boys' faces. They look anxious and glum, really, almost sort of biting their lips. You know, walking with Prince Charles, who seems to be sort of putting a brave face on things. 1992 was the extraordinary year in which Windsor Castle was badly damaged by fire. Prince Andrew and Fergie had split up. To cap it all, barely a fortnight before Christmas, the then Prime Minister, John Major, had announced in the House of Commons that the Prince and Princess of Wales had separated. It's hard to imagine what the mood must have been like at Sandringham that year. It was a miserable year for Princess Diana, who spent the festive season with her brother Earl Spencer at Althorp, their ancestral home. The Duchess of York was also absent. She, of course, had had what came to be known as the toe-sucking scandal with her financial advisor, John Bryan. In the Queen's Christmas broadcast that year, she spoke of difficult days, and that was clearly seen as a reference to the annus horribilis. Oh yes, look, the body language in these pictures really says it all. This is a year later, 1993, and Diana is back with the royal family at Sandringham. A source told my colleague Richard Kay at the time, Diana didn't feel welcome at all. She could see how her being there just made everyone so tense and uneasy. She joined them for the boys' sake, but it wasn't working. You know, we see Diana walking at the back as they left church. Prince Harry's sort of in the middle there, not sure if he should catch up to be with his father, Prince Charles. Prince Charles seems determined to get out of the cameras as quickly as possible. It's a similar story the following year, when Richard Kay reported that Diana felt she had received a frosty reception from the other royals. I mean, look at her, even though she's in this crowd of family members, she looks uncomfortable. Diana's, looking down, looking awkward. The others are there, Prince Edward trying to look straight ahead, pretend everything is normal. Diana actually left Sandringham 30 minutes after this church service ended. She was due to visit a shelter for the homeless, but felt she had to cancel. Diana later said of that day, "If I had been photographed as some sort of Lady Bountiful, my husband's family would have been in uproar, accusing me of a stunt." By 1995, Diana couldn't bring herself to appear at the family gathering. It had been another turbulent year, and the royal family was still reeling from the fallout of her now infamous panorama interview with Martin Bashir. She told friends it would be intolerable to be at Sandringham because of the family's hostility towards her. By now, the Queen was also calling for Charles and Diana to divorce, a step that was once unthinkable. William and Harry were reportedly crestfallen by her plan to stay away, but they understood. Diana reportedly called the Queen, who was also supposedly concerned about the tension that there might be. And here it does look tense, doesn't it? I mean, you look at Prince Philip and the Queen trying to engage Prince Harry in conversation. He's looking down, very shy. Prince William behind them is, again, sort of staring at his feet, hoping not to be noticed. The Queen Mother typically trying to sort of be jolly, keep up appearances, while Prince Charles makes small talk with the vicar. 1997 was a year of unimaginable grief for the royal family and the world, following the tragic death of Princess Diana in a car crash in Paris at just 36 years old. I mean, look in this photograph. It almost looks like a funeral picture in some ways. Both Prince William and Harry wearing dark suits and a dark coat in William's case. You know, they're laden down with gifts, and we can see a woman police officer behind them also carrying gifts. You know, they were almost besieged by well-wishers who, you know, wanted to express their love for the family, their love for the boys, and give them Christmas presents. But by golly, you know, Harry does look awkward. I mean, imagine what it was like, you know, being on parade so soon after their mother's death. In the Queen's Christmas message, she described her shock and horror at Diana's death. One former courtier told the Daily Mail that the atmosphere that year was rather strained, and that the Queen was doing her best to generate a cheerful atmosphere for the sake of the boys. Here, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie looked delighted as they were also collecting various presents from well-wishers. Prince Andrew was laughing, I suspect, at his daughters struggling to carry all their presents. But things were a little less cheerful for the Duchess of York, divorced the previous year and banished to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. Fergie was obliged to bring her own decorations, food and crockery. A Christmas tree from the estate had been left for her, but she said she expected to receive a bill for it. She grilled herself a turkey burger and watched television. The Queen did, though, visit her on Boxing Day. Now this was a much happier Christmas. Sophie's first with the royals at Sandringham. Now look at this picture. We can see Sophie laughing with her brother-in-law, Prince Charles, as Peter Phillips looks on. Behind the scenes, though, apparently Prince Charles was rather peeved that he had to give up rooms at Sandringham for Edward and Sophie. He had a lovely suite of rooms, but royal ladies have an automatic right to a dressing room due to the number of outfit changes that they have to undergo during their stay. Here's another first. 6 years later, and one sight we thought many of us would never see, when Camilla, then the Duchess of Cornwall, joined the family celebrations. 2,000 people came to see the royals that year, and Camilla was considered to be the star of the show. Charles and Camilla looked happy and relaxed. You can see Camilla smiling broadly there. William and Harry are following behind with their cousin Peter Phillips, and they look like they're sort of laughing to each other, probably exchanging a few jokes. A former courtier told the Daily Mail, "That was one of the most relaxed Christmases I can recall." On top of that, Charles was especially happy because he got his favourite sweet back. You see, now he was with Camilla, he had priority again. Look at this. This was 2011, a real year of celebration, the year that Kate Middleton married into the royal family. And you can see from the depth of the crowd there that huge numbers turned up to greet the royal family that year. In fact, it was a record crowd. It was estimated to be about 3,000 on Christmas Day. Catherine was wearing her favourite winter shade of berry, and she was, before her visit, apparently worried about the frequent wardrobe changes. Here Catherine is, walking between her husband and her brother-in-law, Prince Harry. At that time, and for so long afterwards, as we know, they were always laughing and joking. The three of them were often seen together. Harry here seems to be biting his lip, probably making some joke or something, muttering away. We now know how worried Catherine was about her first royal Christmas, and there was a touching gesture from the Queen to make her feel welcome. She gave the Queen chutney as a present, and she said, "I was slightly worried about it, but I noticed the next day that it was on the table. I think such a simple gesture went such a long way for me, and I've noticed since that she's done that on lots of occasions, and I think it just shows her thoughtfulness really, and her care in looking after everybody. Catherine also bought her brother-in-law Prince Harry a Grow Your Own Girlfriend kit, which I think they all thought was quite a good laugh at the time. Mike Tyndall was also present for the first time that year, but Prince Philip was noticeable by his absence. He'd been taken ill and had to stay in hospital before Christmas. The annual Christmas walk to church took on a different tone in 2016 when Prince William and Catherine chose to spend the day with the Middletons instead of at Sandringham. So Prince William's holding the hand of Prince George here, Catherine's carrying Princess Charlotte, and then the Middletons are behind them. James Middleton next to his mother Carol, his father Michael behind James, and Pippa hidden behind James. Christmas at the Middletons is meant to be less sort of military in its precision as at Sandringham. The children look very relaxed in this one. Look at Charlotte there as they're heading into church. This is as they're coming out. She looks pleased to be out again. The next set of pictures we've explored in detail in a previous episode, where I delved into the relationship between the Queen and Meghan Markle. But it is worth emphasising again what an unprecedented Christmas 2017 was for the royals. For the first time, the Queen invited someone who wasn't yet married into the royal family. That was Meghan Markle. Meghan does look nervous. Now here she's sort of clinging on to Prince Harry as they met the crowds. Here we see the royals as the Queen arrived. We see Catherine on the left doing a sort of elegant curtsy, Meghan curtsying quite deep. Obviously her curtsies became very controversial when she showed them off in their Netflix documentary. Harry with head bowed very deeply, and Prince William with a smile on his face. Because of the Queen's act in allowing Meghan to attend, it did set a bit of a royal precedent. So Princess Beatrice's then fiancé, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, was also allowed to join the festivities in 2019, despite not officially being part of the family yet. Here we see him looking pleased to be there. Princess Beatrice looking a bit shy actually, and Edoardo has been there I think every year since. Just 12 months later, Meghan and Harry would spend their last Christmas with the Queen and the rest of the royal family. In these photos there's a noticeable shift in the atmosphere, reflecting the growing tension and change within the family. I mean, look at this, it's, William and Harry not interacting at all, they're facing different directions. Obviously they would say they're trying to address the different sides of the crowd, but there really does seem to be tension there. Again, we see Harry sort of biting his lip almost. Typically Catherine is doing her best to be diplomatic. She looks like she's making some polite small talk with Meghan there, but really it was the beginning of the end for the Fab Four. The following year it was reported that Harry and Meghan had made private plans to spend the festive season with Meghan's mother, Doria. It was sad for Prince Harry. He's always spent Christmas with the royal family, except in 2012 when he was in Afghanistan with the military. Now the couple spend Christmas at their home in California. These pictures are particularly poignant. This is 2019. And it's the last Christmas that the Queen would spend at her beloved Sandringham. The following two Sandringham gatherings were cancelled due to the COVID pandemic. You wouldn't guess it though, would you, from looking at this photograph? Dressed as always in a bright colour, in this case red. You can see she's doing her best to smile and greet the crowds. Prince George and Princess Charlotte joined the royal family at Sandringham for the first time that year. Here you can see Charlotte coordinating with her mother, Charlotte in a green coat, Catherine in a green hat. As always, they were given gifts by well-wishers. Here we see a lady in a wheelchair giving Charlotte a big hug and a flamingo by the looks of it. And just ahead of the Christmas celebrations, we saw this touching moment between the members of the royal family in the line of succession. We have the Queen, Prince Charles, Prince William and Prince George. And it was when Prince George was mixing up the ingredients for a Christmas pudding. And look at this, George is determined to mix it up however hard it is. I think at that point the Queen and Prince Charles decide it's time to make their exit. Notable absences that year, as well as Harry and Meghan, was Prince Andrew, who'd stepped back from royal duties after his disastrous Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis. Prince Philip was also absent because he'd had a recurring medical problem. This is an important picture. This is the first Christmas for Charles as king. So here he is leading the way as they head from church, with Queen Camilla, as she now is, by his side, and Catherine and William following behind, with Charlotte and Prince George. The nation had grieved when the Queen died in September 2022, but the family still kept her traditions alive and gathered at Sandringham for the annual Christmas celebrations. You can see the family here putting on a cheerful display for well-wishers, although this year there was stricter security than previously, after there was a couple of incidents where eggs had been thrown at the new king. It was also the first time that the entire Wales family appeared on Christmas Day. 4-year-old Prince Louis was the star of 2022. His antics at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations, where he was pictured laughing and pulling loads of different faces, really captured the imagination of the crowds. And here we see him striding forward, looking very happy to be in front of the crowds again at Sandringham. And it really was a show of family unity that year. Prince Edward and Sophie and their children appeared, as well as the Tyndalls. Even Prince Andrew and his family enjoyed the turkey lunch before the King's first Christmas message. Now look at this. This is something that royal watchers hadn't expected. It was the return of Sarah Ferguson. She rejoined the festive celebrations. With Prince Andrew, she walked behind senior members of the royal family. It was the first time in more than 30 years that she'd been there. And it was a sign that King Charles was taking a softer approach than his parents had. It was Prince Philip who was said not to want to have Sarah as part of the celebrations again. But it was the children who stole the headlines. Here we have Mike and Zara Tyndall's daughter Mia holding hands with Prince Louis, looking very sweet. And here's a happy family picture. We have King Charles, Queen Camilla, leading the rest of the family members, all looking very jolly, waving to the crowds. Months later, however, the King and Catherine revealed their cancer diagnosis. In fact, this is the last time that we saw the Princess of Wales publicly until March, when she appeared in a video. Following months of preventative chemotherapy treatment, Catherine returned to royal duties. Here we see her at the 2024 Together at Christmas carol service at Westminster Abbey, along with lots of other members of the royal family. And Christmas 2024 will be unlike any other for the royals, after Prince William revealed that 45 members of the extended family would gather for the annual festivities, including, for the first time, the King's stepson, Tom Parker Bowles. Queen Camilla's son told the Daily Telegraph, "My mum said I'd love you to come. I haven't had Christmas with you for a long time." Like any family, Christmas can bring its challenges for the royals. But as these photos show, through all the ups and downs, family is what truly matters. Despite everything, the royals come together, showing love, warmth and support, making the holiday season a time for unity and togetherness. If you enjoyed this episode, you can catch up on Season 1 of Reading the Royals, where I'll analyse the relationship between the Walesers and Sussexes and their lives inside and outside of the royal family.